If you asked me to pick a camera that highlights the disparity between a spec sheet and real world performance, it would be the Canon 6D Mark I. Because in terms of bang for your buck, this could just be about the best value for money camera on the market. And if you looked at it just on its spec sheets, you'd instantly dismiss it. Because if ever there was a camera that has slipped under the radar, it's this one, the Canon 6D Mark I. But in this video, I'm going to explain to you why the Canon 6D Mark I is so much more than its spec sheet. The first is going to be the focus system, because the focus system on the surface of it looks like the same one that was in the 5D Mark I and the 5D Mark II, which weren't as bad as people made out. They had their issues, but if you paired it with a decent lens, it would actually focus really well and pretty quickly. And whilst that focus arrangement of these sort of 9 or 11 points looks kind of basic and primitive, they're actually placed in really useful places, and a lot of the time they pretty much get you to where you want to be, and I quite like it. In fact, as an array of focus points, it might be my favorite, and the reason for that is because you can go from center to the outside side points really quickly. Usually just a couple of taps and you're there, so it's very fast to move the focus points around, which is compelling in its own way when you think about it, especially if you're doing, let's say, portraits and you're switching your orientation between landscape and portrait a lot. But with the 6D Mark I, the center focus point focuses down to -3 EV, which means it's really good in low light. So it's been beefed up from the other cameras. Although I never really had that much of a problem with the Mark I and the Mark II either. I think that the focus system, because it's got so few points, has been overlooked and dismissed as just being not that good. When I look back and think about the work that I've produced, I haven't had that many missed shots. It would be very easy for me to claim that it's been a problem, but I've only really had a problem in low light conditions with the outer focus points. The center focus points on all of these types of cameras have always been good, but on the 6D Mark I, it's actually really good on the center focus point. So if you're happy with focus and recompose, it's great. Look, it's not going to keep up with the 5D Mark III on the outer focus points, and definitely not with the modern cameras. But for the most part, it's going to get the job done, and you'll get far fewer missed shots or out of focus shots than you actually think you're going to get. For a lot of people, the focus system shouldn't hold you back. Let me come on to battery life. The batteries go and go and go. They last because these types of cameras, for some reason with the lower megapixels, I'm not sure why that is, but it's the same with Nikon. The lower megapixel cameras with the same batteries last way longer than with the high. I guess it's to do with like pushing data, right? Processing power. But speaking of batteries, what I use exclusively now is this triple charger from Neewer. This gives you 3 batteries plus this triple charger block. It also can charge via micro USB or USB-C. Now they sent me this to test, and I've been using it for several weeks now to just really get a good idea and impression of what they're like. And I think it comes at a decent price as well. The reason I said yes to this was because I wanted new batteries for a start, but I also wanted that triple charger because the difference between when you go away to do something, plugging in one battery, charging it, and then looking, is it done yet, doing the next one, then doing the next one. 3 is always enough for anything that I'm going to do with these cameras. So these batteries will work in the 5D Mark II, 6D, 5D Mark III, 5D Mark IV, all those kind of cameras. The advantage is being able to just plug this in, stick all 3 batteries in one go, and charge the thing. And the batteries are working well. I'm getting good battery life out of them. They've been holding their charge. This is one of the things I wanted to test with it, whether they hold their charge properly, whether they're up to standard. And so far, after several weeks, I'm really pleased with them. And I'm actually just using these exclusively now. That's super, super convenient. The difference it makes, not having to do all the battery swapping and so on, and having batteries that I can actually rely on, yeah, that's good. As I always say, I only actually review the stuff that I actually keep and use. Everything else gets sent back. So this passed the mark for me, and I'm happy with it. So check those out. There'll be a link in the description as well. We've got to this point now where people don't like the idea of Canon color science and it's getting trashed. But the Canon color science thing is real. And the reason it exists as a concept is because there are multiple threads on loads of forums where people say, how can I make such and such camera look like Canon? I've just switched from Canon and I want it to look like Canon. The reason that people say that, and if you haven't experienced it, is that Canon gives you a really nice look straight out of camera. If you've got reasonably decent lighting, you're probably going to really love the pictures that you get from a camera like a 6D Mark I. And I think it's only once you've experienced that, and the fact that if you do want to change the colors and move things around, the files behave in a way that you want them to, and you're not having to try to guess. The best way I can explain it to you is that with the Canon files, when you want to color grade or change the colors around, they react in a way where you think, oh, that's what I was after, I got it. And so it becomes very quick. And when you get used to that, it's very hard when it gets taken away from you. So when people have moved systems, that's why you've seen all this stuff about how do I get Canon color science? How do I do this? That's why there's so much on Canon color science. It's because people had it, they switched systems, and now they want that aspect back, but they left because of maybe something else. Now, when it comes to the 6D Mark I think the 6D Mark I has to be up there in the top 3 best color sciences from any of the Canon cameras. But look, you're getting this out of a 6D Mark I, which you can get for like $350 or something. It's really incredible. But I will warn you, if you buy a 6D Mark I, the color science in these cameras is a trap. Once you're in, it's hard to leave because you will want that always. There's a difference. There's a real world tangible thing about taking a picture, loading it on the computer and going, wow, that's just like how I imagined it to be, and just getting that over and over again. Now, the next point is dynamic range. The 6D Mark I's got good dynamic range, and that's not about what does it score on DxOMark, because DxOMark doesn't tell you the whole picture. 6D Mark I has got really good dynamic range and probably more than enough for most situations. It's not as good as my Nikon D600, but it's not at the point where I'd give a damn between the two in terms of dynamic range. The dynamic range on the Canon 6D Mark I is good. Now let's talk about ergonomics. Another really strong point on this camera. I've got quite large hands and my hand fits on this grip fully and properly. It's also got a nice deep grip on it as well, so you can really get your hand into it properly. It's really comfortable, and on the back it's got this thumb groove here, which means you can really grip the camera very, very well. One thing you'll notice is that there's no joystick on the back. It would be nice if it had it, but it's not much of a deal breaker. You just use the D-pad to tap the focus points around, which I think it'd be nice if it had the joystick, but just because the focus system and the array of focus points is so simple, it just doesn't really matter. You're only ever moving like 2 taps left, 2 taps right, or something like that, maybe 3 taps. You're not doing more than that, so it's not really a big deal. But look at the back of the camera. All of the controls have been shifted over to the right-hand side, so your image replay button and everything are over here. There's a couple of controls on the other side, but essentially everything's here, and you can program the center button to do other things in these ones as well at the top. But you've got a really nice control layout on the camera. You can make, for instance, the middle button here to be your ISO button, so you can put your thumb on it and just change the top dial to change ISO if you don't want to use the button on the top. And on the top you get the standard dial with 2 custom programmable modes. And as for memory cards, you get 1 SD card slot. That's probably one of the only downsides of the camera is the SD card slot, the fact that there's only one. And because it's actually a bit smaller, it's a smaller camera. At the time it was dismissed because people said, oh, this is more like a consumer level camera. Yeah, and then we're probably right. That's probably the idea of it being smaller. But now it actually looks like a really good compromise because it's bigger than a lot of the mirrorless cameras, so it's actually easier to hold. But you also still benefit from it being compact because you can put it into your bag easily. It fits into everything. If you want to do the shoulder clip thing with a Peak Design clip, you can hang it off that. It's small enough to have the advantages of a small camera and big enough to have the grip and ergonomic advantages of a big camera. I'd actually go as far as saying it's the perfect size for a camera body. Is 20 megapixels enough? Yeah, of course it's enough. The only people that need megapixels, roughly, are wildlife photographers and people doing certain types of commercial work. Look, when you see people zoom in, oh, I can see the detail in the leaves and in the blades of grass, no one cares. Listen to me, no one cares about leaves and blades of grass. If we're talking about artistic work, right, not commercial, just talking about artistic work, if you want to sell your pictures, the way that you're going to sell them is by making people feel something when they look at your work. If they don't feel, no one is going in and looking, oh yeah, the detail, yeah, when you get up close, look at the detail. No one's doing that. The only people that do that is you when you look at your work. That's the only person that does that. Who cares? Like your photo, is it any good or not? That's all I care about. It's like, show me the picture. Is it any good? And no one's looking at it 100%. But for all of you that are just getting excited about a leaf, give me a break. 20 megapixels is more than enough. Let me know in the comment section down below, what kind of gear are you shooting with? If you've enjoyed this video, you could buy me a coffee. The link is in the description. It really helps the channel out. It helps me keep making more videos like this for you guys. Anyway, that's it for today. I will see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.